So at the beginning of today's track, I mentioned that the company that I work in has a very specialist application for AI. So our focus for partners like the Ministry of Education in Singapore and brands, global brands like BBC, is adaptive learning. So modeling learner behavior and using that data to personalize the delivery of instructional and assessment content to learners in a way that meets the students exactly where their needs are. So I am particularly excited to see that we've had healthcare, we've had scientific research applications, we've had commercial applications, but the next application is in my wheelhouse and an area that I'm so interested in. So we're going to be speaking now about generative AI for education. Really, really hot topic and a very strange, very difficult topic for educators to deal with. It's really calling into the question, what is the nature of education in the age, in the era of AI? What is the existential role of the teacher in the age of AI? And we are going to be taking a critical multiplex approach. Please welcome to the stage Professor Junaid Qadir. Professor Qadir, please joins us. He is a professor of computer engineering at your very own Qatar University. Professor Qadir, thank you so much and welcome.
Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim and welcome all. So my name is Junaid Qadir. I'm a professor of computer engineering at Qatar University. I realize that this is the last talk before the break. So I just wanted to tell you that this is not really a deep dive as such. It's going to be more of a philosophical overview of the opportunities and challenges in a hopefully balanced manner. So I do work in educational AI. We also do technical research. I'm a professor of computer engineering. However, the talk today is high level in the sense that we are mostly talking of the challenges and the opportunities, and also a perspective that education is more than just cognition or getting the answers right or just producing something. We need to think holistically of what education is and then think of how AI can be applied for this. So let me see. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So let me start. The first thing is, we all know of the generative AI disruption. Generative AI is perhaps the fastest adopted technology. We see here that ChatGPT has this almost astronomical uptake, 1 million users just in 5 days. Nothing like this has happened before. So there is this real, dynamism about AI, and we are still thinking about how to actually ride the wave. There's also this, metaphor of the AI wave. There is a book on the coming wave of AI. So this talk is about how do we ride this wave in a productive, effective manner for education. So generative AI is not just about LLMs, even though we can generate text, but we also have multiple modalities, images, videos, conversations, like even ChatGPT with it. You can have a real-time conversation. Perhaps you've seen Khan Academy's use of it, the video of Salman Khan talking with a tool in which they're actually real-time doing some exercise collaboratively. So there is this real opportunity. So I would not like to just go into critique of AI directly. There is this, for example, manifesto that has just recently been published, where they highlight many positive uses of AI. So in a sense, there are vast opportunities. However, the key idea is that these things will not come automatically. The students, the teachers have to be literate enough of how to use it and how not to use it, and what are the pitfalls. So because this is a short talk, I will focus on critiquing this. The idea generally is that whenever we think of technology as a complete solution in its own right, we often suffer as a result. So we know from research and complex adaptive systems that it's not just about technology. It's about human beings working with technology, and it's more socio-technical and cultural aspects. They come to the fore. So often when we try to solve a complex problem just through technology, the approach is not quite correct. And in fact, many problems arise because of solutions. Technological solutions create many new problems. So this is what we learn from research on complex adaptive systems. And also the fact that the AI is not remaining static. It's evolving. So problems do not remain solved in a dynamic world. We are in a flux of change. And therefore, we need to think about how we should co-evolve. Okay, the technology is changing. How should we co-evolve in a way that is human beneficial, that enhances student capacity, agency, and we need to think about teaching, assessment in this light. So I showed some opportunities, but also here I highlight some pitfalls that we can fall into if we do not use Gen AI correctly. For example, people have highlighted how we can fall into sophistry and pretentious learning, so that students are just using ChatGPT for answering, the instructors are just using similar tools for assessment, and the learning is not happening. So this was like even from the time of Socrates. He criticized the use of the written text. In his time, he emphasized orality, real person talking to each other, not relying on the books. So now we have this fact that it is very easy to just rely on external tools. So we have this interesting story from the Islamic tradition that Imam al-Ghazali, the famous Islamic scholar, polymath, he went on a journey, he learned for many years. When he was coming back, so there were some robbers who took away his books. And he pleaded with them. He said, this is the fruit of many years of my learning. Please take everything else. Don't take my learning. And the brigand laughed at the person and said, what is that learning that a thief can steal from you? So he said that at that time, I realized that God has sent him to show me that this is not the authentic learning that a thief can steal from you. So now we see that a student can prepare a brilliant essay. However, if the computer is not there, if the Gen AI is not there, maybe their IQ drops to half the amount, or maybe they're not functional even. So there is this problem of addiction on technology, too much reliance. Yes, we can use it. However, how do we ensure that we do not over-rely on it too much? Even before ChatGPT, people were thinking about, why do I need a teacher when we have Google? Now someone needs to write a book. Why do I need a teacher when I've got ChatGPT? So the idea is, even then, it was emphasized that just producing the answers is not enough. Learning and education is a gradual process. In Arabic, this is called ta'aleem, which means something that goes gradually. Okay, also, other words we also use for it, like tarbiyat is also gradual, tarbiyah. So with these tools, we may have disincentives. People might not want to put in the effort. So if I compare my students' performance, many a times when they're asked to solve a question on a paper without tools, their spellings are not quite there. Because usually they use spell checkers, and similarly, the natural unaided performance drops. So the challenge is, how do we incentivize people to actually still work on their unaided capabilities so that their natural capabilities do not atrophy? Like if you have a muscle and you do not use it, what happens to it? Anytime you don't use a muscle, it basically wastes away. So you need to incentivize people to put in the effort. So this is, again, we need to give this awareness to ourselves and our students of why we need to put in the effort. Okay, there is also this halo effect that we may think of AI to be a perfect tool. Whatever it says is the perfect answer. And particularly people who are not very much aware of how AI works, we might think that AI knows everything, is omniscient. Now, Gen AI is general purpose, but is it really omniscient? No, it's mirroring what it is. It has learned from human corpus, and it has many drawbacks. Also, this aspect of dehumanization, the outputs become all alike. Okay, so our individual humanity may be lost because everyone starts to rely on AI. So in the first talk, there was this talk about degenerative AI, where the naturalness dies down because we begin to rely on the synthetic media and production. So how do we remain and retain our human self and not, become mechanical? We want to benefit from the robots and the machines, but also retain our human creativity. The last talk also was talking about this human AI augmentation. So we also can have this, what is called a Matthew effect, which is, the rich become richer. Like if I currently use Gen AI myself, but I know how to critique the output of ChatGPT and other tools because I have studied, I have a PhD in that area. So any answer that is wrong, I can critique it. But a person who's learning something for the first time does not have that literacy. So the initial literacy, the initial knowledge still remains vital. And it's a challenge for new people. Also, we know about the fact that in a complex adaptive system, we have feedback loops. So if you rely on these models, certain stereotypes, they may be reinforced, especially if these tools are used for making important decisions like hiring decisions and assessment, these sorts of things. So we have seen how these tools may be reinforcing biases, and this is why we are focusing on the development of indigenous models like FANAR, and I will talk about how and why we need it in the future slides. So also this question of AI colonialism, that previously countries, they had to invade people to enforce their worldviews. However, now we have single tools that are exclusively used and aggressively promoted in different fields. And if we bring it to education, how do we retain our natural diversity? So we need to be sovereign, indigenous, and that diversity is important for thriving, open civilizations. So now I will talk briefly about how we can educate for the exponential AI era. How do we become robot-proof? And people have been talking about these things, and in the end, the classical skills, they remain classical. They are always valid. So, there are certain things that do not change. So the ability to converse well in person, language skills, grammar skills, in a way they are being automated, critical thinking, but in a way they are becoming more and more important. So instead of just thinking as just education in a vocational way that you undertake education to become employable or someone who can employ people or can make companies. This is just one aspect, the economic imperative. However, we also need to think about other aspects of AI, which now becomes more important because maybe for some things the machine can help you, but the character imperative, the unique human potential realization imperative, we all have a unique consciousness. How do we work on it? Okay, how do we become good at citizenship, and how do we develop these critical thinking skills, and how do we use AI to have shared prosperity? So for that, we need education, we need politics, we need the social sciences, along with the computer sciences, working together in tandem. I wrote this paper in which we talked about how education is a very human-centric thing. It's not about the tools. It is about what the humans can do. So there we had this 3 laws like Asimov's law of robotics that, everyone talks these days about critical embrace. We must use technology in a critical way so that we use it for our benefit. However, we do not let our skills atrophy or weaken. So that's the 3rd law. Don't outsource your thinking muscle, allowing your natural skills to atrophy. So this is a very tight rope. You want to use technology but not suffer from the disadvantages. So this is sort of paradoxical, but we need both and thinking rather than either or thinking that you use technology or you do not use technology. We have to use technology. We perhaps cannot stay at the frontier of knowledge without technology, but there is also this paradox that with uncritical use of technology, we can also suffer. So in the title, we had this term multiplex. This is a paper I wrote with Dr. Rajab of HBKU, in which we look at social sciences, that how social sciences, they emerge from a worldview. And that worldview has a certain implicit ontology, what human beings are, what is reality, what is the purpose of a human being. Epistemology, what is the source of knowledge, how do we know things, what is knowledge, what is it to be educated. And then we come to methodology, and then we see the tools on the top. So currently, because of the AI colonialism, and because of the use of only some tools developed only in the West, and they are basically fine-tuning it. So there are normative choices there. So the point we are trying to make is to suit a multiplex world, a diverse world, we don't need just one tool, we need many tools, and we also need tools that adopt multiplex approaches, that approach reality in a comprehensive way. So we looked at Islamic education, and we looked at how education is not just about the mind, it's not just about the words, it's not just about the mouth, it's also about the heart, it's also about the action, it's also about your beliefs, apart from just knowledge. So there is this, looking at the famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, in which we have these 3 parts, Iman, Islam, Ihsan. We talk of how education is multifaceted, multi-layered, and all of these aspects, we need to think about these things as we incorporate AI into the classroom. And from this, we come with the 3 conclusions, that education must focus on the development of personality or shakhsiyah, individuation. Everyone is unique. How do we enhance their individuality, their agency, their knowledge? The tools do help, but the tool cannot take the place of the individual. We must have dialogic education, not just producing answers. Students, and this is the way you gradually educate people, and a stewardship-oriented perspective, that we are here to inculcate shared prosperity. We are entrusted with the environment, with the resources, and we have to use it in a way that is human beneficial, and it benefits everyone. So what would educating for wisdom look like? It would entail critical thinking, knowing the context, knowing the pitfalls of rules, learning how to criticize yourself, knowing what you do not know. That is very important. Even Socrates said it in his time that, this is the real core of wisdom, knowing what you do not know. So we know of something known as the Dunning-Kruger effect. People who do not have sufficient knowledge, they don't have the metacognition to realize where they do not know. So they are often mistaken in how much they know. We also would be using wisdom in how to use technology, because sometimes it is more wise not to use technology. Like even UNESCO these days, they're saying that for young children, they don't advise the use of AI. In certain countries, they're banning social media. So the technology is there, but we need to think together about how to best use technology in a way that forwards your purpose. So for that, we need to have purpose as societies. There are normative choices. Again, uniplexity versus multiplexity. Uniplexity thinks of purposes in a very narrow way. But with multiplexity, like I just explained that in the Islamic tradition, we have a multi-layered approach. So with this, I come to the conclusion of my talk. I have mentioned how there is a real chance that we can fruitfully integrate AI in education. But the key idea would be how to develop the critical AI literacy on how to use technology well. What are the pitfalls? What are the advantages? And also the core knowledge. Everyone who works in an area needs to know the core knowledge so that they can criticize where AI is not getting it right. And also how to take actions as individuals and society to avoid the potential harms while using AI's affordances. So this is my email address, and this is the paper we just have put on a preprint server. So I welcome your comments and suggestions. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Excellent. So I'm going to have to resist my very strong urge to monopolize the conversation and ask all of the things that I care about. I'll start maybe just, if you could think of your questions, a really wide-ranging topic. So put up your hand, we'll get a microphone to you. We have time for maybe just 2 or 3 questions quickly before the break. Where to start? So one observation that I put to you is, it isn't necessarily the technologists who need to be reminded of the centrality of the role of teachers and their function beyond the inputting of facts. It's often the case that educators themselves, the cause of their existential anxiety about the arrival of AI often stems from an inability for them to articulate their own value beyond AI. So they see AI as a genuine existential threat because oftentimes they're not self-aware enough to realize the massively important role that they play outside the single transmission of facts per se. Is that a phenomenon that you've come across?
Yes, so sometimes we have all kinds of educators. There might be some reluctance, like in the last talk, the presenter talked of reluctance in the healthcare industry as well. So the general thing is, the situation is quite complex, so it's difficult to give a single answer. So there might be some people who are really good at what they do, and they might be able to teach in a very effective fashion even without using AI. And they're well informed of what and how it can use. So what I suggest to educators is to have a look at what it can do and, first of all, have an open mind. And yes, some people are seduced by AI, that like the halo effect, that it is there, so it must be used. So this is a myth that the technology is going to, overtake in any way, even if you resist it or not. So resistance, some authors have noted, is a sign of life. When you stand up for something, when you have a purpose, you use and leverage technology, but you also should resist it so that you avoid the related disadvantages. So I say, people call it a critical embrace of technology. Many institutions have this as their university policy, that we are going to use technology, but all of them, they also recommend and put limits on where it should not be used.
Yeah.
For example, for assessment, it's controversial. For reviewing research papers, it's controversial. Even though some people do use it, for writing research papers as well,
Yeah.
again, there is shifting consensus as well.
And I love, just to bring my own to a close, I love the observation you made about, and it's a slightly cliched phrase to use, but it's a really important idea not to lose sight of. It is the journey, not the destination. Learning is about the struggle, the
Yes.
rewarded struggle, making errors, refining your own
Yes.
critical
Yes.
facilities, learning how to cope with your own mistakes and failures
Yes.
along the path to creating the
Very
final
true.
output. The output itself, we have Google,
Yes.
we have chat.
Yes.
That's not going to help us.
Yes.
Folks, I promised I wouldn't monopolize the conversation, even though a really interesting presentation. So please, our first question, the gentleman.
Assalamu alaikum. Good evening. Good afternoon. My name is Muhammad. Currently, can we get the full education about Islam from AI? And do you think in the future, can we get fatwa from AI? Thank you.
Yeah, I don't do research in that domain, even though some people got research grants on that. Last year, there's also an ongoing project. I don't think it's a good idea to fully rely on AI. There are certain tools which, people have developed, and they have. It's easy to get it wrong. So you ask a fatwa, it's easy to get it wrong. But some people, some very good engineers, have worked with actual madrasas. Because when you build a tool like this, like the Fanar tool that QCRI HBKU has built, you need to get the stakeholders on board. You need to do red teaming, actual attempts trying to bring down the model, adversarial testing, and you need to have it authenticated from the real experts. And then you can see how and where it can be used. Just uncritically using it is very dangerous.
Thank you so much. And we'll take one more from the floor. If we could get a microphone. Thank you. To our esteemed speaker.
Thank you for this very inspirational talk. Actually, my question is, if we embed AI into education, for sure we'll have it in assessment. And we have different types of assessment. So one for the assessment type that is at risk is writing assessment, to ask the student to submit something. So how do you see the writing assessment in the era of AI? Should we continue doing it, or should we modify it in order to embed AI into it?
Yeah. So when it comes to assessment, we know there are two kinds of assessment. One is the summative assessment, where you just judge what currently is there. There is also the formative assessment, where you give advice on how to improve. So I have worked with some students on creating a tool that looks at an engineering project proposal and looks at it from the analysis is focused on complex problem solving. So when we're doing complex problem solving, there are many different perspectives. And it's hard for one person to give a very detailed feedback on all angles. But what you can do is you can have multiple LLM agents. They're given different personas, and they look at it. Some may look at it from a sustainability perspective. Some might look at it from the cultural perspective, from the technical optimization perspective. So we can use it. The summative assessment, again, generally, the advice people give is not to use it. Like, even I'm a faculty member, perhaps you're a faculty member as well. The administration says do not even involve your TA as your assistant in the assessment, because you are responsible. So when you use an AI tool, you have to vet it. And generally, the advice people give is to ensure you are yourself responsible and you do it yourself. You might use it for some assistance, but at the end of the day, it's important, especially for assessment, because wherever the stakes are high, we should not rely exclusively on AI because the stakes are high here. What if the tool gives a wrong grade? Okay, so in that sense, I think maybe some assistance is okay, but at the end of the day, it's you who takes the responsibility. If it's formative, you're not judging people. So in that sense, even a mistake or something that is not fully accurate should be fine.
So thank you so much again for a fantastic presentation. We could talk about so much, zone of proximal development, the ethical considerations, but for now, please join me in a warm round of applause. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Fantastic speak. You may make yourself available just for a moment or two.
yeah.
I'm sure I can see lots of people who
Yes,
do want to speak to you. So